we have. He's responsible for our land development review. So he's our deputy director for a lot of major projects that come through the city. And with that, I'm going to take it away. My name, J.C. Thomas, with the Development Services Department, City of San Diego, Assistant Director, responsible for IT and business operations support. And I'm going to talk to you today about our transition to online permitting and plan submittal. And for those that have been a customer of DSD in the past, you're going to see some things that hopefully are new and beneficial to you as you process permits and plans with us. I'm going to cover off on 4 things. One is the update on our current operations during COVID-19, just to give a level set of where things stand. The second thing is the permitting online, which is really the bulk of my presentation and how it's going to work. Then we're going to talk a little bit about field inspection and virtual inspections, because I think it's important that we get our message out about that. And lastly, the chat room Q&A at the end of this, if there's any questions at the end. And one final note is I want to make sure that I get this presentation out to everybody. So I will put it into a PDF form and then send it out to Craig so you can distribute it out to all your colleagues and clients. Okay. First of all, online permitting really began about 4 years ago for the city. We initiated a contract with the SELA, and we were marching toward a solution to replace an old legacy system that we refer to as PTS. The PTS system was built by our department, now it's almost 20 years ago, uses a older on-premises system to maintain and manage our projects. It's a workflow product. We transitioned to a SELA for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, minor permits, and solar photovoltaic for residential, transportation, and some traffic control and code enforcement. We were actually slated to implement this new online system this year for discretionary and ministerial. Both were in, I'm going to say, early stage. Number of pieces that needed to come together in order for us to implement it. And we had the team ready to move forward with that until we had March 12th and 13th with COVID-19. At that point, when the mayor declared the emergency order, and of course the county and the state and the United States, we wanted to ensure that we had as much safety protocols in place as possible, but we continued to maintain open for service. And so we restricted public contact. We canceled all in-person meetings. We eliminated all in-person walk-in service. And we've instituted plans so that customers can drop off their plans on our first floor. We would quarantine those plans, do our plan review, do the project setups, get the stamping done, and the projects approved, all while not having contact with the customer. We employed telecommuting, virtual meeting in order to continue communication with our customers so that we can address any concerns or get more information from them. We also exchanged a lot of documents via email to ensure that we had all the proper documents coming in electronically that we could during this time. And then we had new safety protocols for our employees and field inspectors on the job. Obviously, everyone's adhering to the 6-foot rule. Wearing face coverings is something that we started from really the very beginning for many of us, and ensuring that we don't have close contact, even amongst ourselves in our own building. We do all of our meetings virtually now. I mean, whether it's we're on the same building or in the same floor, we'll do a Skype meeting or a Teams meeting to ensure that we reduce the amount of contact that we have with each other and avoid the spread of COVID-19. Now, throughout all of this, in the very early days, we recognized that we needed a solution in place immediately to shift from a paper to electronic plan submittal. If you've seen the volume of paper that comes through development services, you would know why we had an urgency to move forward with this. Each time there's a paper document or rolls of paper, or rolls of plans, it's a lot of people that come in contact with that before it reaches our door, and it just continues to propagate the potential risk of COVID-19 being spread. And if that were to happen, it would essentially shut down our operations. We wouldn't be able to process plans from remote locations to the extent that we would need to keep our doors open. So we needed to make sure that we had a path for our customers to be able to continue to submit projects and plans virtually during this time. We had no idea on March 13th how long this would last. And here we are almost on May 1st. We are still essentially, and in many of us, in home quarantine. For development services as an essential function, our doors in terms of keeping the plans and projects moving forward and construction going has been our top priority, along with the safety of our employees. So the new solution that we decided to move forward with is really a hybrid of using our old PTS project tracking system, permit tracking system, along with Acela, our open DSD portal that allows customers to upload projects, files, plans, all in PDF format so that we can accept them electronically and begin our review process. The process was created really to allow customers to continue to workflow, to bring in their projects uninterrupted, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The PTS component was absolutely essential, and you're going to see in this demonstration that we link those two systems together so that we can keep track and maintain the project schedules and keep the projects moving forward. And early on, we had some very different implementation dates. We decided after developing the system, developing the training, and actually executing on the training that May 4th, 2020 would be the date for implementation. And there's going to be a glide path in terms of how we implement that starting May 4th. I'm going to talk about that. But here's a picture of very typical sets of plans that would come in to DSD, and this is on a daily basis. We're getting anywhere from, and I'm estimating based on feedback I've heard from our third floor, that anywhere from 100 to 200 different requests are coming in on a daily basis. So multiply that times every week and every month, and then you're looking at anywhere between 35,000 up to 50,000 permits and projects a year, which by far is the largest, I think the largest permitting agency, definitely in San Diego County, second largest maybe in California. And converting to PDF is going to be able to shrink the size of that down essentially to virtual, which will make our lives and our customers' lives hopefully a lot easier in the long run. So we've developed really a three-step workflow, and there's a fourth step for discretionary projects that I'll conclude with on the project application submittal. The way it works is a customer would visit our website instead of coming to our offices as they do today, and they would complete a simple application form. We would then receive that application form and a description of the project. And when I say description, it's really only a couple of sentences that would need to be provided. And then we would issue the customer a PTS tracking number. And that number will follow you, as it does today, throughout the entire cycle of the permit. And then you would also receive instructions, and the instructions would tell you what documents would be needed to complete that permit. So whether it's a single family home or a commercial office building or high rise, you would receive those sets of instructions at the time you get the PTS number. Then the customer would create an open DSD account. Now that system exists today for very simple permits, as I described earlier on. It's going to be expanded for PTS type permits. And that's a general category that's going to allow us to bring in all discretionary and ministerial projects electronically. And then the customer would upload those plans in a PDF format. And then finally, we would send confirmation that all the documents have been received and the submittal process would begin. And I'll show you a screenshot or two, but to the extent that we can, as you're interacting with OpenDSD and you're successful in uploading your plans, you're going to get immediate responses and confirmation back as a customer so that you've submitted properly. If you don't submit properly, it's not going to allow you to complete the submittal process, and you might have to go back to the beginning. We have a user guide I'll talk about, and then obviously you can also contact us if you're having some trouble. The second step in the process. Okay, now that we've received all the plan documents in the application, the customer would receive an invoice as it happens today, pay the invoice and project fees, and we would deem the application complete and would move on to really this is where the review process will begin and end. The project may require a resubmittal, and often happens with a project. And so we would ask the customers at this point, this would all be, again, electronic in our open DSD format, comments back to the customer. They could be reviewed by the customer. They would know what corrections would need to be made. And then the cycle would come back to us for a second review if required. Once that's complete, and assuming that there are no outstanding issues, it would move on to the final stages, in which we would notify the customer that we are ready to receive your final plans and begin the permit process. That moves us into, oh, pardon me. There we go. That moves us into the third step in this, and that is the project is now in final approval and permit stage. We would notify. Yes.
Real quick, I think people are having a hard time seeing the size of the screen there. You might want to enlarge your PowerPoint or put it to full screen so people can see it.
Okay, give me 1 second.
If you can, it's not a problem. I will send the PowerPoint around, as you noted before. You got it?
Yeah, just give me a minute, please. Yeah.
That's better.
How's that?
Perfect.
All right. And there we go. Okay. Now I'm going to be flying blind, so I've eliminated my screen of Zoom. I can't see you guys, so I'm going to keep going through the PowerPoint, and then Craig, just stop me again like this if we run into any issues. We're now in the final stage of approval and permit. This is the most important part, obviously. We've completed the reviews, and we would notify the customer that we're ready for final permit. We would send an invoice to the customer. We would stamp electronically the plans and release those plans back to the customer. Once the customer pays the final permit fees and prints a copy of the plans for the construction site, they can begin their project and start calling for inspections. And so that's essentially it. All that is happening electronically until you get to the final stage. That final stage will still require that a hard copy set of the plans be maintained on the construction site. I'm sure there'll be a point in the future where we're going to look at electronic for that, but in the meantime, it's still, we believe, is necessary both for the construction managers and then also our field inspectors to be able to sign off on various aspects of the project. Three other things happen at this stage that we're responsible for. And the customer often provided hard copies for us to manage, but now will be virtual or digital. We're going to retain a copy for our records, as we do today, on the second floor. And the building design records will still be restricted and only released. The final building plans released only if signed off by the architect or the building owner. Second thing is we're going to send a copy to the County of San Diego and working on a digital solution for that. And then lastly, we still have an issue of requiring Mylar. So printed Mylars are still going to be part of our, at least for the near term, our process of retaining those records and having printed Mylars. Eventually, those two should be able to go in digital format. And to give you an idea of what the stamping process will look like, it will be, essentially a City of San Diego permit issued stamp that would be watermark embedded on every single page of the plan, and would be locked down so that the customer couldn't alter that if they needed to. So we want to make sure that we had secured the PDF final version for stamping and approval. Discretionary projects, as most of you know, if you've been involved in those, they often take a slightly different turn in the process that we have to involve external reviewers. Those external reviewers can be community planning groups. They also could be other agencies like Coastal Commission or Caltrans or Sandag. And so we've developed an in-house process where we would be able to provide PDF files to those agencies. And the process works essentially like this. We receive the plans from the customer, as I showed in the earlier slides. Those project plans would be uploaded to a city website, and we would create a link. So our staff would have access to the back end of our City of San Diego website, where the documents would be housed, but they're not searchable and visible to the public. It's really a place for us. Think of it like the back end of a library, where we would house the books, house the documents. We'd be able to pull the link or the PDF file name, and then send those out to external reviewers. The external reviewers can click on the link and go directly to the document. They wouldn't see anything else. It's not like you would go search on a website to see this. They would actually get the link embedded in a form that we provide to them, so that they can give us feedback and comments. We would then receive those feedback and comments, and our review staff would include that in PTS as we do today. So no change in our review process with that. We would complete our review, and then the project moves to hearing. At this stage, oftentimes we receive draft documents, draft reports, and when you get into the discretionary hearings, they get more near final reports, or what I call near final. And so the older draft versions would either be recycled or destroyed, or in this case, we would remove the links. They would no longer be visible because they've been replaced with a superseded version or a final version of that report. So there is one question that has come up about, hey, what's the risk of having older documents floating around that are no longer valid? Those older documents and the links would be broken so that they would no longer be accessible to the public. If someone downloaded one or printed one, that's a different issue. We're advising that they use the link and view the link during the time period which they have the rights to review the project before it moves to the final hearing. And I did put up a quick shot of what the discretionary looks like. As you know, they provide an important function. They do review some ministerial projects, so Caltrans or Sandag or MTS or even Airport Authority may review some ministerial. Obviously, the discretionary is obvious. They do review and comment on those. With the transition online permitting, we're going to provide them those electronic files for the review, and then we're going to maintain the original files in our records as we normally do. Craig, I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions before I move on to the next part of our presentation.
I don't have any questions right now, so let's keep going.
All right.
Oh,
okay.
Actually, hang on. Length of review times was the question mark.
What's that?
The length of review times question mark.
Our review times aren't changing. We're not changing anything in our submittal manual. So what the review times are for today, based on the type of project you have, is going to remain the same. The only thing that is different between what I'm saying a COVID-19 world and going electronic is the quarantine. So currently we set a 24-hour quarantine before we even touch the plans. That'll be eliminated.
Okay. Preliminary reviews, will they be the same process?
Let's see if Gary, if you're on and you want to be able to address that.
Yes, it would be the same process as well. So same timelines for the single discipline, 5 days, multidisciplinary up to 20 days. No difference with those.
Will express reviews still be available?
We are currently looking into Express and how we could better serve that function. Problem right now is almost everything comes in as Express, so it's an issue, but we are going to maintain Express projects that have already been paid and set up as processed as Express. We are looking to reopen it to new projects, hopefully with this rollout, but we'll get back to you on that.
Okay. How long will the initial submittal process take?
Yeah, let me address that, because there is going, under this new, what we call a hybrid system, we're going to receive those documents 24 hours, 7 days a week. So the documents will come in to an inbox, and our submittal staff will go through the inbox, first in gets first address, and begin the process of providing the customer some guidance on what to submit. Now, customers that are experienced and are used to working with DSD and the review process will know what documents they need as they begin the process. They're just waiting for a PTS number. And so that initial I say the initial response that gives them submittal requirements could be a day or two, could be a couple of days. It just depends on the scope of each project. Simpler projects obviously are going to be quick turnaround, and then the more complex ones may take a little bit longer. And we will still be able to meet with customers via Skype or Teams or by phone or email to ensure that we address any issues so that we can complete that submittal process. One of the flags that have already been raised is, hey, what happens if we run into a missing document? Can we still complete submittal process? Well, you know, we're not supposed to. We're supposed to have all of our documents in ready to go before we complete submittal. But in some cases, I'm going to say very insignificant documents, and we're working in a virtual and digital world, we'll be able to move things forward much faster as a result of that, knowing that the customer return time will be much quicker.
All right, I'm going to do 2 more questions, JC, and then let you get on with it. But what if you have a project that's already using the old process, the old paper process?
Yeah, it has come up, and the issue is on some projects, if we're in reviewing some construction changes, it can be difficult for our reviewers to look at paper and compare it to a digital copy. And so that's something we're going to have to address on a case-by-case basis. But we want to make sure that we offer flexibility for customers, especially on the larger, more complex and I'm going to say expensive printing projects, that if we can go digital and the customer would like to go digital, we want to offer that flexibility to them.
And then the last question, and this is something I know Gary's on the phone, so perhaps he can address this. And I've now heard it from a couple of other projects on the stamp transfer. I know you talked about the electronic stamp. Stamp transfer is apparently taking a long time, and how that's working with inspections and getting them scheduled. You may touch on that later, but do you want to address that now or hold on that?
We can address that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about that at the end. Okay. Now I'm taking you to our website. This is current. This is our what it looks like today at san diego.gov/DSD. And we posted here on May 4th. You can apply for permits online. You can read the notice. The public notice is here, and you can preview our new system. We have I'm going to say a computer-generated video that will show you how to create a OpenDSD account and begin uploading your plans. When we go live on May the 4th, this feature will turn into apply now for a permit online instead of the video. And when you go to apply for a permit online, it will take you to a landing page somewhat like this. This is a staging site right now, but the landing page will allow you to select various types of building permits, construction change permits, public right-of-way. There's about 15 different types. You can also use a user's guide to help you navigate through that so that you create your account, your OpenDSD, and you can upload your plans, and it has all the plan requirements. So keep that in mind as well. It's a pretty simple, straightforward process of applying for the permit. You'll fill out a simple application. If you look at the entire scope of our process, this is really the only added step that we've included in the permit review cycle, is completing this form. This will allow you as a customer to get a PTS tracking number and begin your submittal process. And so it's really as simple as putting your name and address, phone number, project number if you have it, your address, your assessor parcel, and your project scope, and you hit submit. And after you hit submit, you get an email reply back, and then you're instructed to go create in OpenDSD a new account. And so this is the landing page for creating a new account in OpenDSD, and you either register or log in. In this case, log in. And Craig, for expediency in this presentation, I knocked out about 10 slides of screenshots. I think it's all in the user guide, and it will show you how step by step. This is the final stage, though. I wanted to show you that I've gone through and I've created my account. I've uploaded my documents. I've verified that they're all PDF files, otherwise it's going to get rejected. And then I've now deemed complete, and I get a immediate gratification of this green check mark, and I can review it and keep track of where my project is. And I'm also going to get communications back from DSD throughout this process. So it's in the user's guide. It'll be in the full presentation for you, for anyone that needs that. But for today's discussion, I've trimmed out about 10 slides. So we didn't have to go through each step in the process.
That's great, JC. If you can put that in the presentation you sent around, those extra slides, that would be great so everybody can see them.
Okay, so our transition begins with some test projects. So for the last 2 weeks, we have been testing our system and our reviewers with, I think it's about 3 or 4 digital submittals and resubmittals to ensure that both we're accustomed to working with the files and then also tracking it in PTS, because we are using this hybrid system. Our go live date is May the 4th, 2020. Our customers will have the option to continue with paper submittal during the transition period. So what that means is on May the 4th, if you've already printed a set of plans and you want to bring them in as a printed set and do the quarantine, you can certainly do that. If you decide, okay, I'm going to switch to digital and you want to do that on the 4th, you can do that. How long we're going to continue this transition period depends upon our reviewers and our customers. We want to ensure that we work out any of the issues before we do a quick stop and only accept digital format at a certain point. So having maximum flexibility is important. In case we run into any issues, we'll tap the brakes, or if we things are going great, we'll just hit the accelerator and move it up and transition all to digital format. Projects that was asked earlier that are in process prior to May 4th that started in paper, can you finish in paper? The answer is yes, we can offer that flexibility, but we're also going to evaluate to see if they want to switch over to digital, because we know there is significant cost savings in time in which it takes to print out a set of plans, that moving to digital might be advantageous for our customers, and we want to be flexible. And we're going to continue to evaluate how this works and make adjustments as needed, and seek feedback from various forums and groups, which we do every day. We get feedback on our current review process, and I'm sure we're going to get feedback on the digital when we fully implement it on the 4th. And then lastly, we haven't lost sight of replacing our PTS system. It's a legacy system, needs to be replaced, and we're going to continue on with our plans to do that and realign our schedule to do that for the fall later this year after we get through this hybrid process implementation and the COVID-19 period. Craig, I'm going to pause again. That is the overview of the digital. And before I get into the inspections and virtual inspection, I want to see if there's any issues, questions, thoughts, or if we want to go back to the stamp transfer question.
No, I've got about 4 questions here, and they're good ones. You touched on, if you've already submitted and are in the paper process, if someone wants to convert from paper to digital, how would they do that?
Well, the first thing is, because we are dealing with that on a case-by-case basis, they would contact their reviewer. They already have a PTS number, but we want to make sure that we can accommodate that. And so they would work with their reviewer if there is one assigned, or contact us and make sure that we have someone assigned to that. And it's going to take us a little bit more time to open it up to all anyone who was previous to May 4th. So there isn't a system per se that's going to be available. So make sure you contact us. We're going to use your PTS number. That's not going to change, but we need to migrate your information over into the open DSD system.
Okay. I have 2 questions that are somewhat similar here. Do we have to create an open DSD account for each project, or one per person who is processing multiple projects?
You can have one and multiple projects if you're, for example, a company and you have more than one project, or if you have, multiple clients. I would recommend one for each client. That question has come up too, so that you keep separation between your different workflows.
Okay. How will third plan processors be able to interact in the new process? Is there only a single point of contact from the client side?
Single point of contact.
I think this gets at interactivity in the electronic process. Can only one person interact, or multiple people?
Maybe see if we could restate that question for me.
Tim, you were the one. No, wait, it was Ralph Linder. If you can restate that question.
Yeah.
That would be great, and I'll read it. Let me jump to, will completeness reviews still be a part of the building permit process?
Yes. Yes, and there is an important distinction I want to make in this new workflow. Oftentimes, as a customer, you may get phases of your project completed by different reviewers, and actually receive hard copies back, maybe even with the stamp approval. And because we are consolidating that to the final reviewer, you're not going to get the stamp until you get the final reviewer, but you're going to get the sign-offs in PTS, and you're going to be able to look at those sign-offs and the comments back from the reviewers throughout the entire cycle. But you just won't get the stamp until you get the final reviewer, and the final reviewer is responsible for sending the setback to the customer. Another issue that's come up is oftentimes we'll have markups on plans that are done by reviewers. We're going to be using Adobe Pro. And in some cases, reviewers will, well, at least in this hybrid system, be documenting more detail in PTS so that the customers are clear what are the changes that need to be made. Markups are still possible. You can put sticky notes in Adobe Pro. You can use, different simple markups and highlights. And so there are tools available for that. Another thing that, if you don't mind me keep going here, Craig, is that people have asked, hey, can I still bring paper in? Can I have a meeting with DSD staff? Can we review? I need to roll out my set of plans on a table. Well, yes, in a post-COVID-19 world, we're going to be able to meet with our customers in, maybe in different circumstances, in conference rooms or in meetings, and paper is still going to be a viable, and necessary tool, but the final submittals will be in electronic format. That's all. And then trying to think what else.
How about
another question, Craig?
Can construction changes be digitally submitted?
Yes, and that's once it's digital, we're going to stay with digital. The issue that we've been trying to address is what happens if they started in paper, and that's something we're going to have to deal with on a case-by-case basis. And evaluate it as we go.
I know this came up on a previous webinar that you did on this subject, JC, but what about file size limitations?
Good news. We've been able to increase our file size limit to 200 megabyte. I know it doesn't sound like much when we're dealing with large plans, but we started with 100 megabyte file size. We're now at 200, so we've doubled that. Our goal is to get up to 400. The largest that I've seen, and these are large sets of plans, they're in the 500 to 600 megabyte range. And so we're going to ask customers to break them into chapters or components. On discretionary projects, there may be a couple of documents that are in 100 plus megabyte that I've seen, and the rest are very small, 5, 10 megabyte, technical studies and reports.
Okay. I'm going to hit pause one more time. Everybody, I've hit mute on all of you, but there are a few people that I cannot mute. So there's somebody that has a lot of talk and background noise. So if you can all mute your phones as well, or your computers, that would be great.
Hey, Craig, do we want to come back to that issue of discretionary and the question that had to do with external reviewers?
To clarify, yes. When using a plan processor consultant, can the architect/engineer also access, respond, and track the PC process?
Well, I guess I could say yes. The answer is yes. No different than it is today.
If you're listed as a point of contact, then you should be able to be viewing the OpenDSD comments the same way you'd be reviewing these comments. As long as you're listed as the point of contact, that's the person that gets the information. And you can have multiple points of contact.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
This goes back to your comment, JC, about people wanting to still meet. Are Zoom and WebEx meetings an option to meet online with reviewers during plan check?
The answer is yes. The tool of choice right now for the city is we have really two. We have Teams and we have Skype for Business. And ultimately, our plan is to continue to look at different tools that work for us, and we are exploring other tools in part because of COVID-19. And so, as customers have set up meetings like this and they want to use those other tools, we can participate in those, but we cannot host those meetings either in Zoom or WebEx just yet.
Okay, and then the last one, so does the electronic stamp set replace the perforated set?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you want to, you can probably hold on to the end on the whole issue of stamp transfer, or you can address it here, JC or Gary.
Gary, why don't we touch on it real quick? And I want to share also some feedback that I got from Lonnie Post, who heads up our submittal team. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, so we've had to set up an entirely new process, and by submitting the plans on the first floor, customers are to fill out those forms. They're not always filled out correctly, unfortunately. The plans come in for quarantine. We have them arranged by date. Intake staff does then put them into the different categories, which are the normal building permit submittals, combo building permit submittals, engineering, right-of-way, traffic control, engineering, discretionary, and then these other two, which are the appointment recheck, OTC stuff, and stamp transfers. Those two things obviously were done by you, your designers or plan runners before, so that's an additional responsibility that they have. They go through each and every one of these sets of plans. A lot of times the information, the request isn't clear. They have to do some forensics and see actually what that customer wanted. They have to do the contact with them. So they're about 3 to 5 days behind, simply because a lot of our staff are not here due to COVID issues themselves or childcare. They are allowed to, take time off. So about 2 weeks ago, I organized a group to triage on that third floor for the submittals. We've brought in additional staff that have experience in setup, issuance, and stamp transfer projects to set those up and route those to the different areas. We have different areas on the third floor set up for these types of projects. The stamp transfers basically are in one area. And each supervisor, each staff member gets an email that, hey, this plan came in for a stamp transfer. They're to go to those booths and do the stamp. Sometimes these plans don't have the original stamp set. That's a problem. So that's where some of the delay is. We have supervisors there monitoring those projects to make sure that they are stamp transferred to be done within 24 hours. We instituted that last week. If there are specific project related issues with stamp transfers, please contact me and I will follow up and make sure that they're in the right queue and in the right process.
Okay, so to be clear, I mean, I know that I've heard the complaint, and I mentioned this to y'all yesterday, the 3 to 4 weeks piece of it. You're trying to knock that down to make sure that you're getting to it as quickly as possible. And if anybody's having problems, they should talk to you, right?
Yeah, if it's 3 to 4 weeks, there's some other type of issue going on. We're getting a lot of these done same day or 2 days. So I don't know why one would be 3 to 4 weeks. That's not a standard turnaround time for stamp transfers. If something is more than 5 days, please contact me and I'll figure it out.
Okay.
But a lot of times it's the plans aren't in there that were stamped, original sets. So they're just sitting there. And maybe the planner said, hey, you got your stamp transfer here, but you don't have the set that was stamped by me originally. So we're dealing with that.
Okay. All right, let's move on, JC.
Okay, I'm going to touch on virtual inspection because I think it's an important tool for us, and then also new inspection protocols. This is really for those that are on the construction side, but we want to make sure the message gets out there during this time because it's important. First of all, we are conducting a pilot program to use virtual inspection. And virtual inspection is really using the tools like, Craig, like what you described, WebEx and Skype or Zoom or Google Duo or whatever the tools are that are coming out, and being able to complete inspections virtually instead of having to go out to the job site. And we've already discovered that, number one, it can be used successfully. That number two, there may be some issues related to cellular service, and so that will have to be addressed in some cases. Number three, that we don't have to go to the site at all. It can be done from a workstation at a computer. Often that's even better if you're at a workstation as an inspector. And then lastly, we want to have good communication with our customers and ensure that they have the similar either application so that we can communicate to them. These will all be set up under the normal scheduling that we do today when you call for your inspection. Make sure that if you can, you could request it. These are the types of inspections that we're doing. I know they may seem very basic, but we've already identified 20 different types of inspections that can be done virtually. That's going to save everybody, us, our customer, time and money in having to go through the process. So we're also developing some training guides for our inspectors, our field inspectors, to make sure that they identify and check up on the appropriate aspects of each inspection type as they go through it. So that's essentially it in a nutshell for the virtual inspection. We have some new safety protocols, and I'm going to buzz through these, but they're going to be in the document that I send out to you, Craig, for everybody. One is that, and this went out last week, construction job site requirements, that each job site is going to have a comprehensive plan in place that includes the social distancing requirements, hygiene, decontamination, hand washing stations, that sort of thing. That everyone's going to have to practice social distancing, 6-foot separation, prohibit meetings and gatherings of 10 or more people on the job site, using, avoiding choke points in high-risk areas, lunch areas, things like that, where you can reduce the number of people that can be in that area. And then not sharing equipment and tools. If it is required, it must be sanitized when you hand it off to the next person. Again, continuing this, washing hands with soap, hand sanitizer, clean and sanitary restrooms, cease providing communal drinking water coolers. I know that could be an issue as people are going out and they have water stations, but at least this is a COVID-19 protocol to ensure workers are safe. And then discontinue carpooling to the extent that you can, and then maintain a log of workers on site. Having a supervisor, a COVID-19 supervisor, it could be a job foreman, it could be a health and safety manager that might be on site to ensure that all of these new requirements are carried out. And then this is obvious. I mean, if you're in the construction industry, you already have some PPE equipment, you know about safety, and we're just adding additional requirements about face coverings and keeping them clean. And then latex gloves when appropriate. That's not always the case, but you may need them on certain locations. And then not sharing PPE with coworkers, but that's pretty obvious in the construction industry. Job site signage. We want to make sure that our customers are putting out signage, appropriate signage from CDC guidelines on the hygiene, touching the face, hands, and hand sanitizer, covering the mouth and nose when coughing, cleaning and disinfecting, and touching objects. And then well-being checks. So this is an additional requirement that well-being checks be conducted on the job site before workers notify their managers and stay at home if they are sick, have a fever, or a high-risk category if they have an underlying condition, have been exposed or diagnosed with COVID-19, or required to advise to stay at home, and have an immediate family members who are sick with COVID-19. Any worker displaying the symptoms or other must leave the job site immediately, and appropriate management team and notify the supervisor. And my last slide, Craig, is to remind everyone that we're implementing the online permitting. We're excited about it on May the 4th. It's been a thing that obviously we've been working hard on the last 6.5 weeks. We want it to be successful. We can't do it without our customers' support and participation. We need to know feedback if we're having any issues with it. As you brought up the issue of stamp transfer today, I think that's good feedback for us as you're seeing things. And when we go electronic, if you see or hear of any issues, let us know. We're going to implement our plan to replace the Acela replace the PTS system with Acela later this year. We're going to evaluate our virtual inspection pilot program, and then we're going to continue to update our procedures with COVID-19. And with that, I want to turn it back to you, Craig, to see if there's anything in the chat room, any questions out there.
Sure. A couple on the virtual inspection program, just to clarify, when does the pilot program start?
It started about actually 3 weeks ago. We publicly announced it last week, and we've already been conducting some photovoltaic inspections, some electrical, plumbing, and some foundation pours.
Okay. Are non-residential electric vehicle charging infrastructure projects eligible for virtual inspection?
I will find out.
Okay.
Yep.
Going back to a couple of other issues, what is the timeline for step 1 customer application and submission?
That begins May 4th
Okay.
at 12:01 a.m.
You're going to have a queue of people waiting for that. How long? It's going to be like Comic-Con tickets. How long before you want to submit your project for review should you submit for a PTS number?
Well, when you're ready to proceed with your project, you may not have all of your documents and requirements ready, or you may not be familiar with all of the requirements. And so at your earliest time, you want to get that initial form in and be assigned a PTS number. There's no issue, no harm in that. We don't want to create a jam of people are getting PTS numbers and they're not pursuing a project, but we also want to make sure that you get your request in when you're ready to move forward as an applicant. And then that way you can spend your time gathering all the documents required for the submittal. And so there is a process. There is a two-step process there that is normally done in face-to-face meetings and coming into DSD. And hopefully by having it virtual, it'll speed up that process of not having to drive here or meet with us.
Is there a maximum length of time between submitting for PTS number and submitting documents before the PTS number expires?
No.
All right.
Although we are, we don't have a particular standard for that because this is a new hybrid process, but we also don't want project inactivity. And project inactivity beyond a year, we may have to evaluate if they're sitting there with an idle PTS number and no project, of whether or not we send a notification back to the customer that says, hey, we're canceling your PTS number. But we're going to evaluate that.
After May the 4th, will you no longer be able to submit in paper format?
You will be able to submit, but we don't have a time frame when that will be discontinued. But it will be several weeks where you can continue with paper.
So it will be discontinued at some point, though, right?
Yes. And the plan is not to return to an all paper submittal process once we've implemented May 4th. This is not just a COVID-19 solution. This is a permanent change of our operations.
Will OTC still be available after COVID-19? I think that's kind of the same question, but.
Yeah, it is, but it's being redefined because once you're digital and you're submitting, it's a submittal process. But we know that there are some OTC projects that I don't want to call them same day permit, but they can be pretty quick in the turnaround time. And so we want to be able to move those forward as we had in the past. We know that's a service that may be unique to DSD and how we do it, or unique to how cities do it, and we value it. And I know our customers value OTC. Gary, do you want to comment any further on OTC?
Yeah, no, we're going to keep that. It'll just be called something different, but the timelines will be the same. And the expectation of staff is that these are set up as an over-the-counter project. They're simple enough to do the minute you get them in your queue. So we will prioritize those.
Okay. PTS currently offers API XML data transfer. Will Accela also offer API?
One more time, Craig.
Yeah, and I'm not a subject matter expert on this, so I'm just going to repeat. I'm going to say it as it was asked. PTS currently offers API XML data transfer. Will Accela also offer API data transfer?
That might be I'll have to check into that. I think it has to do with looking at permit statistics. And the answer is we're still using PTS for the time being. And so the data and information about permit tracking and permit data will still be available as we do it today. Accela offers the same capabilities, and we're exploring different tools that our customers would be able to use for producing their own reports related to permit data. So I'll circle back with you, Craig, on that one to check with our technical team to see if that's still possible, though.
The link for the electronic submittal users guide, I assume will that go live May 4th, or is that already posted, and where can they find it?
It will be posted May 4th. And the video is up today. And it'll be on either on our main page or on when you click to apply for a permit. It's going to be posted in several different locations, so it's easy to access.
Is that something you can send along with the presentation, or are you still working on it?
Let me check with the deployment team on that. We had the final draft yesterday, and I'll see if it's ready for distribution.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Well, looks like I've gotten to all the questions, and we're getting close to the 1 hour time frame anyway. For those that are on the call, and I know there were a number in the queue that were not able to join because of the max space, I did record, and I will provide the recording as well as the presentation and materials that JC sends me to everybody on the call and to those that weren't able to join the call. And we'll work with Karen Burgess to put it on YouTube, and that link can get sent around to everybody so you can take a look at it. And JC, you'll be famous, and Gary too.
Thank you very much, Craig. And we're here to serve our customers. We're here to make sure that our customers can move their projects forward, adhere to our municipal code and our permit requirements, and keep our construction industry moving forward. So if you have ideas and you want to share them with us, let's use this format again. As we move forward, maybe we schedule another call if we need to in a couple of weeks or in a month. We're open to it.
I think that's probably a good idea, JC. I mean, obviously you're doing great work in transitioning. I know the downside is that we're doing it because of the COVID, but the upside is that we're accelerating it. So we really appreciate this. And I know that there are going to probably be fits and starts through this process. So we look forward to working with you on that. And I think another call would be warranted to go through this process. And I will certainly up my game on the hosting side. And I know you'll continue to provide information for folks. So if anything comes up between now and the next time we get something together, feel free to send it to me and I'll push it out to everybody.
Thank you, Craig.
All right, with that, thank you, Gary. Thank you, JC. We appreciate all you're doing. And to everybody, be safe and be well.
Have a great day.
Take care.